Aye, aye, aye. 8 minutes into the top of the hour. Not such a good thing, but here we are, of course, trying to deal with some technical issues. And of course, we are now in session. It is the summit o'clock. Sincere apologies for you who's been waiting for us to actually kick off this particular session right here, right now. Of course, we are here each and every Wednesday from 9 p.m. And of course, the aim is to scale the heights and be able to bring up conversations that matter to you and I in different ways. If you're listening or hearing me for the first time, if you're seeing this face for the first time, as always, my name is Eugene Adangwe. Thank you for making time. Of course, we are live across different platforms, including the X platform and also on YouTube. All you need to do is just get onto these platforms and get conversational with us. We actually open up those platforms for you to also be part of the conversations that we have right here in a studio. So if it is on YouTube, just go onto the RwandaTV YouTube channel, and on the X platform, get it on the RBA X platform. That is it. And of course, if you're tweeting us or Xing us, just use the hashtag #TheSummit. I'll sample your comments in the course of the program. Tonight on the program, we are actually evaluating, giving a review on the electoral process right here in Rwanda. But of course, we're trying to look at the aspect of accountability within the electoral process. Governance, accountability, how does that come in? Of course, we're talking at a time when the provisional results are out for the just concluded general election, right at the first of its kind. And of course, we want to just understand and make sense out of it right in the studio. And of course, I want us to be able to bring in the panelists who are joining us for this particular conversation. Right here in studio, I have none other than Honorable Germaine Mukabalisa, Women MP candidate. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you too.
In your other life, you are actually within the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you for making time.
Welcome.
And for joining us on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Also joining us virtually, we have Charlene Chikomo, who is actually a political economist, and he is actually a student at the University of Cape Town. He'll be coming on that screen next. But the person on the screen right now that you can see is Lore Somi Amunga. She is a youth activist based out of Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you so much, Amunga, for joining us on this particular conversation. And of course, we'll be looking forward to hearing your comments on this. Like I said, we'll also be joined by Charlene Chikomo, who's a political economist. He'll be joining us from Johannesburg, South Africa. I want us to start right here in studio. And Honorable Germaine, I want to just hear from you, because you are on the campaign trail.
Yes.
You know, chasing the seat that is actually reserved for the women in Parliament. Yes. And of course, I want to just read your thoughts on the outcomes of this vote. We have seen the provisional results are out, not the final results. We know the presidential election results. President Paul Kagame, incumbent president, garnered 91.1% of the vote. And of course, the RPF took a bigger share, a chunk in the parliament. Just take us through what is most memorable for you on the campaign trail when you are actually, garnering for these particular votes on the ground.
Oh, thank you so much. I was under women category. I was campaigning under that category. It was amazing. The area, the Southern Province where I was campaigning, we had 60 candidates. So it was an amazing opportunity to network. It even started before the actual campaign started. We started by training, where we were brought together by National Women Council, had an opportunity to network, to know each other. So the actual spirit of what is coming in the future started even before the campaign period. Yeah. So for us, it was a memorable moment to be able to meet with citizens, to meet with other candidates, to express our constitutional rights of competing to the parliamentary seats, and especially reserved for women, which is a privilege that we are really grateful for in this country, that women, we have special seats reserved for us. So it was an amazing moment that we have had.
Yeah, and I'll come to that, but I want to understand also the place of accountability, because in your previous life, as far as your role is concerned, in the past, Parliament, you served under the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, and accountability was very key. And some people might mistake you and say, she's so soft-spoken, but wait until you are in your natural environment within the Parliament premises. That's when they know, she has clothes, she can come for you. Talk to us a bit about the place of accountability and the role it played in the number of votes that we've seen, because there are people from other countries and other places who are wondering, how do you garner 91.15%? It's almost like 100% of the vote. What role does accountability play in these numbers that we're seeing as far as these results, the preliminary results, are concerned?
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you mentioned my participation in Public Accounting Committee. So it's accountability culture. For the last 30 years, the accountability culture has been instilled in Rwandan values. Yeah. So when you are talking about accountability, it's not a new concept. Actually, every citizen is expecting accountability from the leaders. Yeah. So leaders, they know in their daily exercising of their responsibility that at a certain point they will be asked what have they done according to their responsibilities. Yeah. So it's not a new concept, given that for the last 30 years, it has been a culture consistently instilled in people, of course, from our president, His Excellency Paul Kagame. It shows that people trust that whatever you do in this country, you will be held accountable, and you have to do it perfectly. Yeah. So when you say that the president got most of the votes, it's natural, because who brought that culture of accountability? He's the image of accountability. For example, for me, when I was seated in the Public Accounts Committee, I was myself holding myself accountable. Like, if I'm talking about this project, is this aligned with the level of accountability that His Excellency always tells us about? So if we can disassociate accountability with our president, it's not possible. It's not possible. He's the symbol of accountability, and he helped us, even the citizens, to understand, like, we have a government that we trust and that we can hold accountable anytime. So the results is a natural process of what has been instilled in people, the trust, the accountability that people have in their government, in their leaders. Right, that's very interesting. We'll come to build more on that, and I want to cross over to Nairobi and speak to Amunga. Amunga, if you're there with us, I want to understand, because we're talking about the aspect of the role of accountability in governance and how it plays a role in the leaders that we elect, the leaders that we choose. And looking at the state of affairs in Kenya today, I've seen a lot that is happening on the streets of Kenya, and what I'm hearing is that we want our government to be accountable, and we're pushing for accountability. Today when we're speaking, you're telling me that we're actually at the Ministry of Education pushing for accountability. Just share with us, what sort of accountability mechanisms are you looking for as a young person, as a Kenyan, as a citizen? What is it that you look for in leaders, even when you now go to queue and say we want now to cast our ballot and elect this person into office?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. And it is wonderful to be able to, congratulate also the president of Rwanda for sitting in for his 4th term. And in matters of accountability, in Kenya, we are battling with the lack of accountability from our government. And we are referring to ourselves as the Gen Z. It's a Gen Z movement, inquiring that our leaders take responsibility for their actions. In terms of which accountability we are seeking for, if you go to platforms like Twitter or Instagram, you will see our members of parliament flaunting the money that, the taxpayers are paying heavily for, and they're flaunting the cars that they've bought or the houses that they've invested in, or even, the schools that their children are studying in. They also flaunt the belts which are imported and not Kenyan-based. So in terms of accountability, we keep asking them, how do they expect us as the Kenyan citizens to pay higher taxes so that they can buy belts from, China or import it from the US, instead of actually, telling us that this is where the money that we are paying as taxpayers, this is where it's going, and this is what it's being used for. Kenya is heavily in debt to, areas like the IMF, and, we are paying heavy taxes for this, but we don't know how much of the tax that we are paying is actually going towards repaying the loan that we have. And so this is something that the Kenyans have risen up against. In matters of education, there is a new funding model in Kenya, which apparently is going to really impose high loan interest on the students in universities.
Yeah.
And we do not understand why, because we are not being told why. So I think Rwanda is unique in the sense that they have this trust in their government. And, you can see it from the people, you can see it from the votes. Because we were quite impressed that 99.15% of the people voted for, the new president once again for his fourth term. It was impressive because this is not achieved in the Kenyan, environment. And, Rwanda is on the spotlight, and Rwanda is a country that hopefully we will learn from and we will grow from.
Yeah.
But in this platform, I would also like to inquire, are the people of Rwanda voting for Mr. Paul Kagame because they trust in him, or is it because he's all they've ever known? In the sense of they do not know who enters into leadership next. If not him, then who else?
Yeah, right. It's a good question, which we'll be able to break down right on the program. At this point, I want to bring in Shalin Chikomo. Chikomo, you've been in this country before you flew to, to further your studies where you are right now in South Africa. What are the things that you saw as a young person, as a person who's actually been pursuing your career, in terms of the accountability that makes Rwanda stand out when it comes to accountability, even as we now choose our leaders? What are those lessons that you would be able to put on the table and say, look, to respond to Amunga's question, Rwandans are actually not voting because they are afraid of not knowing anyone else, but probably it's because of the following reasons. What would those reasons be?
Thank you very much, Anangwe, and I hope you can hear me well, just to make sure you can hear me.
Yeah, increase the volume. We need the volume. Our monitor in studio is a bit low. Kindly increase the volume. Yes?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Much better, yeah.
Okay, great. First of all, thank you very much for having me on this platform. In terms of your question, I think every time we discuss the question of accountability, I think we must not discuss it isolated from the vision that the country has, because we find ourselves in a situation where, in most cases, when we are talking about accountability, we are talking about accountability out of context of what is the vision that the country has. So I think one of the things that I've seen Rwanda has been able to do, it is to explain precisely and clearly, transparently to the people of Rwanda, what is it that they are trying to do as a country. So in terms of accountability, they are not just looking at what other countries are doing. They are not just looking at the definition of accountability from other places. They are not just looking at what is accountability, and so they have a measurement of that accountability, and that is in the name of the vision that the country is pursuing. When you go to other countries across the continent, I've been privileged, as young as I am, to visit Kenya, for example, visit Nigeria, for example, visit South Africa, visit Uganda, and other countries. You see that in most cases, what you see is a lack of clarity by the people on what the national vision is. So that becomes problematic, because when we are holding these leaders accountable, what exactly are we holding them accountable on? What exactly shows us that this is the direction, this is not the direction? So in terms of accountability, while in Rwanda, I've been able to see the localization of the vision, the contextualization of the vision, the understanding of where the country is coming from and where the country is going to.
Yeah.
That is why you see when you meet people who, for example, disagree with the numbers that President Kagame is able to get, it's because they are thinking of those numbers vis-a-vis the reality of their country. They are not looking at where Rwanda is coming from as a country, what is expected of a leader to drive that transformation from 1994 to 2004. So it is important as a country to know what is the vision of the country.
Yeah.
Where are we coming from and where are we going? For Kenya, for example, do we have that trajectory of where Kenya is coming from or where Kenya is going to? When that trajectory is there, then you are not just, when you look at the minister flaunting some money on Instagram, you are able to say this type of flaunting is not consistent to the vision of the country. When you see people traveling everywhere, you are able to use that as an accountability mechanism. So that is number one. Number two, I think Rwanda has also been able to define what development means for them. And in most countries, what I see, we are not clear on that. You realize that in most countries, we think being like America is development. We think being like a certain country is development. But I think we need to reach a place as a country, which I think Rwanda has been able to do, to define for itself that development for us is not comparing ourselves as it is seeing where are we coming from and where are we going. So in terms of that, when that is clear, you find out that there is a clear understanding among the people and appreciation of the program.
Yeah.
Yes, we might have issues, but surely we are not where we used to be.
Interesting.
So those are two things that I have been able to appreciate about Rwanda, which brings the question of accountability into context.
Yeah.
These numbers also explain that reality.
Right. So there must be a journey, a proper clear vision of where have we come from, where are we going, and then we're able to be grounded on the accountability nature in that particular sense. I want to bring back Honorable Germain on this, especially on MPs and what our panelist from Nairobi, Kenya is saying, that the level of accountability that they see is quite different because, the political or being part of the political process has seemingly been converted into a money minting kind of career. People get into politics not because they want to serve, but because they feel that is the place where you get rich. And this has happened in different jurisdictions. What's the story of Rwanda? How is it being an MP in Rwanda? In terms of what grounds you, what are the things that, lead you, define you, even when you serve, when you deliver your duties, what are those things that define you that you feel makes Rwanda stand out in that particular sense?
Thank you. We have a history of bad politics that led to genocide against Tutsi.
Yes.
So the politics of our country was very bad to the extent of having genocide against Tutsi. So, the inner motivation that drive us to even participate in politics life is that we want to be part of the people that are transforming the country. Because
not to be rich.
Not to be rich, definitely. Not to be rich. Because we feel like we have a calling, we have a president that is there, committed to bring transformation. Then, on another hand, we have an organ, a parliament, that can help the president to hold accountable the government to implement those amazing policies. Yeah. That itself, it's a motivation. Yeah. Money-driven, not really, because you cannot invest money when you are campaigning and say you will get it. We definitely don't even invest money in our campaign because it's a money-free campaign, if I can say.
Right. If you can whisper to me, how much did you spend in your campaign?
Apart from printing my posters,
Yeah.
I have not spent any other money,
Right.
just printing.
Yeah.
Especially for women category, we had facilitation from the National Women Council that was catering for transport. The government was transporting the Electoral College to the stadium where we were telling them our plan, our manifesto. So you don't invest money, so you don't expect to get return on
that investment.
On that investment.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity to serve and to be part of this bigger transformation.
Right.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting, because probably, and I want to hear also from Amunga in just a short while, probably the reason why some of the MPs in that part of the country that she's speaking from are actually doing what they do is because probably they invest so much and they want that to come back, because by the time they're elected, they're thinking about how to repay those who actually they are indebted to, and by the time they are getting in, the first thing is can we increase our salaries, can we think about the next election, how we'll be voted back into power. What's your pressure as an MP in Rwanda?
Our pressure is to deliver to the citizen, because our citizen, they understand the accountability, so they want you to deliver to their expectations.
Right.
And remember, we have a government that is people-centered. Right. So the pressure that we have is, am I delivering to the expectation of the citizen? Yeah. Am I on the pace of the government? Because remember, we have the government accountable. Am I scrutinizing those laws to respond to the problems of the citizen? Are the laws right? So this is kind of pressure, not the money related, but in a good way, because citizens here, they know they are right. They know every leader is accountable to them. Yeah. So if you are voted, you make sure that whenever I hear or I get to know the problem of the citizen, you make sure that you follow it up. You ask the government to resolve it until you find that that problem is resolved. Yeah. So if there is a pending issues that was not resolved, and you get to know it as an MP, that's a kind of pressure.
That's the pressure.
Yeah.
Let me hear from Amunga. Amunga, from where you sit, do you feel probably that the pressure for the parliamentarians in Kenya is justified because they feel we've invested so much, it takes us so much. I remember one MP in Kenya who represents one constituency who actually spoke about the millions, close to 50 million Kenya shillings that he had to spend to be able to clinch that seat. Could this be the pressure that is causing the MPs not to deliver and to be accountable to the citizens? Instead, they're being accountable to those who actually put them there, who supported them financially. And that's why we are seeing tokenism. If a president wins, they want to appoint those who supported them from the regions to appease those who come from those areas so they don't lose their second term.
Actually, before I answer you, I think Rwandan politicians are too good to be true. They should come and educate our parliamentarians. Because even when you hear how they're talking and you're hearing them saying that it's not about the money, our members of parliament earn a sitting allowance. Every time they sit in parliament, they get paid. So I think it's very true to say that the members of parliament here in Kenya enter parliament knowing that they're trying to get back the money they invested in their campaign. Because from the start of the campaign, you find that they pay people during their campaigns. They give money to people to vote to them. They give money to people to attend their rallies. They give money to print posters, and them themselves don't put up the posters. So they hire people to also put up posters for them. They hold grand campaigns, and you see them with cars that have their faces all over. And all you can think of is, oh my God, once they enter parliament, this is my tax money repaying this car. So it is quite interesting to hear that in Rwanda, you are prioritizing the people. Because here, they are clearly prioritizing the money. And this is why the Gen Z, which is, our generation, we have stood up against this and gone to the streets and gone to those institutions, whether it's education or even parliament. We entered parliament during the demonstration. It was supposed to be peaceful, and even though we lost some of the people that went to protest with us because they were shot by police, it was a sign that power belongs to the people, or at least it should belong to the people.
Yeah. And
I think it's quite interesting to see Rwanda prioritizing the people over money. It's something that clearly makes Rwanda stand out.
Right, interesting. Charlene, I mean, I want to read your thoughts from where you sit, from that part of the African continent that you come from. I mean, talk to us a bit about the other side of the story. How is it like in terms of, representation and getting to represent the people? And once you're in there, the pressures and the priorities that end up shifting. How is it like there? We seem to have lost Charlene's sound. We'll come back to you. Just stay with us, Charlene. I want to come back to you right here in studio, Honorable Germaine, especially now that we are talking about a new mandate that will be cemented officially by the National Electoral Commission when they announce the final results. What more would you be thinking to see? Because if there is a performance of 91.15%, what more? How do you get to beyond that? How do you deliver, beyond just that 91.15%? I know President Kagame did say that it's not just a number. It is actually a voice that says it's a vote of confidence. And when it's a vote of confidence, it puts the pressure you just actually said in terms of the expectations that the people have on them. As you think about the next pressure of the next 5 years, I'm sure that the numbers will come positive when they announce the final numbers. But what should we be looking at in the next 5 years?
Oh, thank you. The trust that the people have is that they have seen things work. So they have seen Vision 2020 working. They have seen NST1 implemented amazingly. Now we have Vision 2050. We are ready to see it, to see the government delivering. The president will give the plan. So that is the expectation that the people have. They say, we have seen roads, we have seen schools, we have seen health toilets, we have seen hospitals. Now what's next? The expectation is not different from what they had. Now everyone is saying, where will we be in next 5 years? Because they know where they have been for the last 7 years. Now they are expecting exactly the same, but in a better way, because we have paved the way for the development. So the vision is clear. We have Vision 2050, and every citizen, they have the expectations that I will be here by the end of 5 years. So all the eyes are looking at how we are going to implement the next coming mandate. From the experience of what they had, because they have seen the president that delivered. So they are expecting the same and even beyond of what was delivered.
Right. And talking about expectations and of course, the institutions that support in implementing the accountability aspect, which you've played a very major role in. Share with us the experience, because some institutions that are there sometimes fail to get the support that is needed to actually achieve their mandates, So you actually check government institutions to be accountable through summoning them to actually explain some of the discrepancies that you end up seeing in the numbers in their duties. Talk to us about the support in ensuring that what comes out as part of your reports and your recommendations, how far does that go? Are you toothless? Do you ever feel the support? Can you be able to say, look, the accountability you see in Rwanda, we've actually contributed immensely because, look, we gave out a report on the following discrepancies of institutions X, Y, Z. and XYZ monies were recovered, XYZ persons were held accountable, and they're now serving, their term. Talk to us a bit about that part.
Yes. During the accountability exercise, especially on referring in the Parliament, in the Public Account Committee, I can give you an example. Most of districts had a clean audit, which is amazing because previously they were struggling to have their books clean. If we talk about clean audit, it's about project delivered to citizen, value for money that was achieved, and financial transparency. So if most of the districts have achieved the level of cleanliness in their finances, so it's an impact. But we go beyond what didn't go right. We ask questions. What can we do so that in the future this is not repeated itself? So there are recommendations that are formulated at the end of every public hearing. Then the recommendation is submitted to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister reports back on each and every specific recommendation. And by the end of every review of the report, we go back to the response provided by the Prime Minister to see what they have done. And for example, there are problems that cannot be resolved within maybe 6 months. They give us a roadmap, like within 3 years,
we'll fix this.
We'll fix this. Then you do the monitoring, then you go back to monitor if they have implemented those recommendations. So
they never give you headache, like we told you to do this, and they come back nothing.
I cannot say it's a headache. During the implementation, challenges can happen. But good thing, they all understand the level of accountability. They may come up like, we have done this, but along the way, we have faced these challenges. So together we look at it, what can be done, which institution can help you. For example, one institution cannot be the one that is creating that problem. Maybe there is a Rhine ministry. Then we call that Rhine ministry. Why are you not supporting this institution to get clean on this recommendation? So it's a channel from different actors that work together in a synergy to come up with a solution to a given recommendation. During the last term, we even introduced preventive oversight. You don't go finding out what went wrong.
You help.
Can we go even before and read through the project and everything? What could go wrong? Then instead of going after when things have happened, then you find solutions.
Interesting. Charlene, I know I'm going to come back to you just to be sure that your sound has been fixed. But in the meantime, let me talk to Amunga. Just give me Amunga on the screen, please, in Nairobi, Kenya. Technical team, thank you. So, Amunga, I want to hear your thoughts, especially on what we just heard from Honorable Germain here, in terms of the institutions that are supposed to help in pushing for accountability, especially checking government, and she's given us a clear picture of how it happens right here in Rwanda. What's the loophole? What's the challenge? Where do you see things need to be fixed? Because you've said you're on the streets and you're pushing to ensure that there's accountability. What has gone wrong in those lines of, as far as institutions are concerned?
I believe in Kenya, the problem has come in where there is political influence in areas where are supposed to be for the people. For example, I will say the executive has been involved in matters of parliament. When you see the finance bill being announced, you will see the members of parliament behind the president. And as the president is saying the finance bill, the proposed finance bill in Kenya is good for the people, you will see the MPs clapping. And when the president also says that the finance bill is being, rejected, again, the MPs were behind the president clapping. So you wonder the same systems that were supposed to be for the people are supporting whatever movements the executive will decide. So in Kenya, we unfortunately cannot trust the members of parliament who are there at the moment, and we have to be the ones to hold our government accountable. And so the movement that has been there by the Gen Z has seen the president actually call various student leaders to the Ministry of Education or to various ministries to have a dialogue and to discuss such matters, where we are asking, the president tough questions like, how much debt do we owe to the IMF? Mm-hmm. And where are our tax monies, going to? And when are we expected to pay the debt? You understand, such questions which are not normally talked about by the same people that we put in parliament to be our representation. Mm-hmm. So when you see the members of parliament, instead of talking to the people that they represent and ask them, are you for the finance bill or are you against the finance bill? You just see them standing and backing the president on whichever, decision that he will have, instead of actually taking the decision-making back to the people and having these conversations with the people that they represent. And so that is where the problem starts. And just before I finish, the second problem that I noticed is the discrepancies between the Constitution and the powers that the members of parliament have. So you find that the Constitution can say one thing, but the members of parliament can pass laws. They have the ability to propose laws and also pass laws after it has been, agreed on by the president. So some laws that are passed are not in the Constitution. So you find they are unconstitutional, but they're legal because they were passed as an act of parliament. You understand? So I feel there is a form of problem there, and it's something that should be addressed. And as the Kenyan youth, as the Kenyan Gen Z, we are working on it day and night to keep our governments accountable, because we will not allow our country to continue failing, seeing our people suffering, and yet we do nothing about it.
Right. I'm going to come back to you shortly. I'm also told we are almost running out of time. Chikomo, we are now a global village because we've been talking about integration. We've been talking about, one Africa, moving together, the ACFTA. How do we ensure that, we are also thinking along the same lines when it comes to, accountability, lessons learned, good practices? These are things, these are fundamentals that should be happening so that we are not growing in one side, but when you go to your neighbor, there's a fire in there. From where you sit and the cost that you're taking, what sort of remedies would you be proposing, just in a nutshell?
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me now.
Chikomo, we don't have your sound, and I feel so bad because I know how your voice is very powerful, and today you've been rendered powerless just because of technology. Sorry about that. We'll try fix that before we go. I'll come back to you, Honorable Germain, especially on that specific question. In other countries, we're seeing how young people are actually uprising against, the governments of those they have chosen. While in Rwanda, it's the opposite. We saw young people in masses, at the campaign rallies. We saw first-time voters cheerfully and joyfully running to the ballot to actually vote. We know that the Electoral Commission announced that there was close to 2 million new voters. All of them were actually young people. What's the secret? What makes Rwanda unique? That while others are actually practicing apathy or not wanting to go to vote or actually uprising against their governments, in Rwanda it is the opposite. What's the secret? What's happening?
It's the results of good governance. We have a history of where youth were involved massively in committing genocide against Tutsi. But on the other hand, we have young people that stopped the genocide against Tutsi. So our youth, they have real life experience. Yeah. The youth that committed genocide and the youth that stopped the genocide and transformed the country. So the choice for them is clear, to choose the future, to choose to take the future of their country in their hands. We know our choice, to think big. Can I think big if I'm not going to exercise my constitutional right and choose a right leader? Am I not thinking big if I don't go and vote the leader that I think have the best interests of me and my family at heart? So our youth, they understood that. They understood that staying together, having a unity, not letting politics dividing them, and take back to the dark days of our country. Our youth, they know the choice is to stay together, to think big, and be accountable. How can you be accountable if yourself, you are not going to vote for a leader that you want to hold accountable? So our youth, they have been raised through this culture of patriotism, of unity, and of accountability. So they understand that the future of the Rwanda that we have is in their hands. Our leaders, His Excellency Paul Kagame and the other leaders, they have did their part, giving us a country developed and on a good track. So it's in their hands to take it forward. So I think this is what motivated most of youth and even myself to go vote, because I know it's my generation to make an impact, to take Rwanda from this level to another level.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Charlene, I want to try one more time. Let's see if your voice is in there. Just the same question I'd asked you, and probably you could also chip in on the role of young people. Especially we've had these kind of sessions, these kind of shows where we ask the question, youth involvement in politics. And for far too long, it was seen as not there. But what we are seeing today is quite the opposite. Young people are saying, look, here we are. How can we see to it that the aspect of accountability is a shared goal across the continent, and then also the involvement of young people in this, and how do we sustain this? Very briefly.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. I think one thing that we should be aware of is that by 2035, Africa is projected to have the highest young population than all other continents. And I think all other countries, be it Kenya, be it Zimbabwe, be it Rwanda, there is that clear understanding that young people constitute the majority of the population. So they are not just the leaders of tomorrow, they are actually the leaders of now, because most of the policies that we are making today affect more these young people, be it educational policies, and most of these policies, you realize that the people that they affect the most are the young people. So any detachment of young people in policy making will result in exactly what we are seeing happening in Kenya. And any youth-centric approach to policy will result in what the Honorable is explaining about what we see in Rwanda, that the RPF continues to enjoy the support of the young people despite narratives of the West and narratives of certain people, because young people are looking for government that puts their interests at the center. And I think this speaks to all African governments that it's either we youth up or we ship out, because young people are really the majority, and our policies have to reflect that. So what that means is there is something that President Kagame said sometime when he was saying the days of doing things for young people are over. It is the time for doing things with the young people. So we need to start seeing politicians not just talking about young people, but also bringing them on board to sit down as stakeholders and say, what is the future of our country together? We've seen that in Rwanda through the youth council that we see, also through how Rwanda has been going through the process of accountability through things like Umushikirano, because what we are seeing in Kenya is that the parliament has detached from representing the young people. It's now representing its own interests. Where you are having a parliament passing a certain bill, and outside that parliament, you have young people demonstrating against the bill. What that means is the parliament has stopped being a representative of the people. It now represents a certain interest that is not on the ground.
Yeah.
But when you come to Rwanda, for instance, you see that if parliament, let's say, has done that, Umushikirano is coming, where there's a platform for the people to represent themselves and air their views. If parliament does that, you have a youth council where young people still have an expressive platform to utter their views. If parliament does that, you realize that in Rwanda, local communities have a consultative way, they can still hear from the young people.
Yeah.
And it is reflected even in these numbers. Many people are questioning of President Kagame. Why? Because the RPF in Rwanda, it shows us that it has been able to put the young people at the center, and young people have no choice but to go and support that.
Right.
So I just wanted to make it clear that it is time the African leadership, African government, stop talking about the things they want to do for young people, but bring the young people on board by availing platforms that allows these young people to usher in their ideas. If you look at Rwanda, I love Rwanda a lot because when you look at the development of Rwanda, it's driven by young people. Be it them, for example, the honorable here, you can see he's not very old and he's proud of the country, and you can see the ideas he brings, fresh ideas, the creativity, be it in business, be it in politics. But when you look at other countries, we see that we continue to be a blockade against the potential of our young people.
Yeah.
We continue to block our own potential by, for example, systems that don't allow young people to come on board. So maybe this is about time we also need to question, number one, not just talk about youth participation. We need to also talk about what kind of systems do we have in our country that places the youth at the center of decision making.
Right.
I'm talking about, for example, youth councils. I'm talking about, for example, even their participation in politics, right? One question maybe I would want us to discuss maybe on another day is, for example, the National Election Councils. What are the criteria they are looking for? Because when you go to other countries, you look at those criteria, they are unbearable for young people. You can't participate, for example, the number of votes, the number of signatures needed. For example, the number of resources needed for one to participate. You might realize they are not youth-centric. So it is about time African institutions open up for young people's participation so that we make it easier for these young people to participate. Because what we are seeing in Kenya is not just a Kenyan problem. It is exactly what is going to come to countries that have isolated the young people. And what we are seeing in Rwanda is a case study of what happens to parties that put young people at the center. You see them on TikTok talking about President Kagame. You see them on Instagram talking about President Kagame. Why? Because Kagame to them is not just a person. It is the understanding that youth matter, and we have to put them at the center of policy making and decision making.
Thank you, Shalin, loud and clear. Let me appreciate Michael Kasede, who's saying that he's watching us live from Kampala, Uganda. Thank you very much. Bizimungu Noel, who says we should build good country based on our history. Thank you very much for your feedback. And of course, all those who are watching us right about now. I just want to take a quick final thought from each of you, just under a minute. Just Amunga, if you're with us, just I want to hear your thoughts. I mean, what next from here? What is it that you anticipate in the next coming days? Just very briefly, what is it that you want to see?
You know, here in Kenya, we have a saying for the youth. We say, comrade, power. And then you say power. Mm-hmm. That means power belongs to the people, and it always will. And Rwanda has shown us that the people can actually trust its government. Mm-hmm. Moving forward, we look forward to a Kenya where our government is trusted by its people and works for its people and not for its political parties. Mm-hmm. So what's next for Kenya? Kenya is going to grow from here. The youth, we are not going down anytime soon. Comrades power, comrades wisdom. We are not silencing our voices. We will keep on holding our governments accountable. And Rwanda, we are very proud to see that an African country can do it. Soon, countries like Nigeria, countries like, even Uganda will be joining the movement, and the youth are the future. So watch this space.
All right. Thank you very much, Amunga. Your closing thoughts, Honorable. I want to give you the last word here in studio. How do you maintain this trust? What do you do moving forward to ensure that it's never broken?
It's now in Rwandan values. The accountability, it's part and parcel now of our culture. It's not something you can give to citizen, it's their right.
Yeah.
So the citizen knows their rights, but the government also knows that they owe to the citizen to deliver. So what really I would tell my fellow Rwandans is each and everyone to have their development plans, like where am I going to be in the next 5 years? I know the government is busy working on the development of a country, but me at my personal level, at my family level, where am I going to be in the next 5 years? Because the government is busy delivering on the promises, the parliament is busy checking on the government, but also a citizen. Where am I going to be? What am I going to invest so that in the next 5 years I will be here and there? Because we have a trust of the institution working for the betterment of the citizen. Citizen also, we know they have that confidence and they are also busy working on their development of their families or at individual level, as the government is also busy performing what they have promised to citizens.
Right. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you. We always say it's the shortest 1 hour ever, and I'm told that we're actually out of time at this particular moment. I want to say thank you so much, Honorable Germaine. Thank you for making time. Charlene Chikoma, all the way in South Africa, thank you for making time. Of course, Somi Ahuga, also joining us from Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you very much for your time. And also on behalf of the teams, including Alice, amazing lady, thank you very much for being a great producer and watching over all of us throughout this particular production. The technical team, thank you so much for making this happen. As always, my name is Eugene Anangwe. Goodbye for now.